Let's talk about one of the questions in the reading modules, that is list of heading. List of heading is one question which most of the students find difficult. Well, you don't have to worry about anything if you have the right strategy. But there is a lot of wrong advice about list of heading on various social media platforms. Well, what is that wrong advice? Well, one advice that people normally get is that you read the first two and the last two lines, and the answer is there. When you read only the first two and the last two lines, you don't get the overall idea of the paragraph and you lose the meaning. So it is the worst advice that you can follow. Second advice that most of the instructors give is that when you read the first two and the last two lines, try to match the keywords there with the list of headings given as a title. But if you do again this strategy, most of the times it's going to be trap and you may end up getting a wrong answer. So kindly don't follow these two strategies. Third thing that I have heard, that whenever you are doing list of headings, you should keep a dictionary along with you. And whenever you see a difficult word, you stop there, figure out the meaning of that word, and then continue reading. Again, this is the worst strategy that you can follow, because if you keep stopping in the middle of the paragraphs, you will never get the overall meaning. Another advice that I've heard is that you should read the paragraph slowly, understand each and every word, and then move on. Well, whenever you're reading list of heading, you don't have to read it slowly. Instead, you should read it quite fast so that you can get the overall idea. If you read anything slowly, you will never be able to get the gist of any paragraph. So, what are the steps to follow when you do list of heading? The very first step you follow is you read the title. After reading the title, you kind of warm up and get to know what this whole passage will be about. After reading the list of heading, after reading the title, either you go through the titles given at the back or you go through the paragraphs one by one. So it's your choice whether you want to read the titles first or you firstly want to start with the paragraph. So if you start with the paragraph, what you simply do is quickly read the paragraph, and after reading the paragraph, you ask yourself whether this paragraph is talking about something positive or negative, or it's talking about both, or the paragraph is talking about something past, present, future, or in the paragraph there was some research given, or in a particular paragraph there was talking about a particular argument. So if you can answer these questions, you can easily get an overall idea of the paragraph. And if you are unable to come up with the answer to these questions, doing list of heading would be really troublesome for you. And you most of the time are not going to get your answers right, merely because of wrong strategy. So I'm going to start with the exercise now. Let's start. You can see on the screen, there is a title given there which says light pollution. So the idea behind reading the title is to get to know what this whole passage will be about. So this whole passage will be talking about pollution, which is caused by lights around us. So now I'm going to give you 1 minute. You can read the A paragraph. And after reading the first paragraph, that is A, you are going to let me know what was happening in this paragraph. But wait, you must know how to read the paragraph as well. Make sure you read the paragraph very quickly. Second rule you need to follow is whenever you come across a difficult word, you will not stop there. Instead of stopping, you will continue to read till the end of the paragraph. This step is going to help you improve your speed reading skills as well. Third is whenever you see a difficult word, you're not going to stop. So I'm giving you 1 minute now. Start reading the paragraph, and after reading it, you gotta tell me what was happening in the paragraph. Okay, so what was happening in this paragraph? Well, if you ask me, basically in this paragraph, they were talking about a journey, right? But sometimes students don't get the overall idea because they get too stuck at difficult words. If I talk about various words in this paragraph, that is a dome of hazy gold. When I was reading, I also didn't know the meaning of this word, but still, I got my answer right because I got to know overall this paragraph was talking about a journey. A journey of what? Well, from where do we get to know this paragraph was talking about a journey? If you look at the very first line, they have written, after hours of driving south in the pitch black darkness, means they were driving and they reached somewhere. And after reaching somewhere, they saw a sign, and that sign mentioned Las Vegas 30 miles. So, in total, they were talking about a journey. And if I talk about the list of heading, the very first list of heading says why lights are needed. Well, in this paragraph, they haven't mentioned any reason as to why lights are needed, so this cannot be an answer. If I talk about the second, they have written lightning discourages lawbreaker. Well, they haven't mentioned about any lawbreaker, so it cannot be the answer. Third talks about environmental dangers. Merely does this paragraph talk about dangers at all, so it cannot be the answer. If I talk about fourth, they've mentioned people at risk from bright lights. They're not talking about bright lights, and nor are they talking about any risk in the paragraph. They simply talked about a journey. So after having read all the list of headings, the most appropriate one is approaching the city. But wait, are they talking about any city in this paragraph? Yes, they are talking about Las Vegas. And approaching means when they were driving, they saw a sign that is Las Vegas 30 miles, means they were about to approach a particular city. So I hope you were able to get how to do a particular paragraph, how to read it, and how to match it with a list of heading. Let's move on to the next paragraph. I'm giving you 1 minute. Quickly read the paragraph and then let me know what's happening there. So, did you get to know what was being talked about in this paragraph? It may get confusing for you because there were so many things being talked about. Well, if I talk about the overall idea, this paragraph was talking about that lights were too much on the streets, that the whole area was over illuminated. Over illuminated means it's too bright and the light was more than what was required. Well, if I talk about list of headings as titles, you might get confused between a fifth and the eighth option. Fifth point, if I talk about, they're talking about illuminating space. And if you read from the very first and the last two lines, you feel like it's the fifth option because in the first line you got a keyword that is illuminating, and in the last line also they have written over illuminated. So if you are figuring out the answers like this, if you are decoding the answers like this is probably a wrong strategy, because you cannot just merely match the keywords from the first two and the last two lines and come to the answer. Stop following this strategy. So if I talk about the overall idea, as I mentioned before, they were talking about that the light was missing its target area and it was more bright than it was required. So it was over illuminated, more light than it's required. So the answer is eighth, more light than is necessary. So if you just match the keywords, you will go for fifth, but it's a trap for you. But if you understand the overall meaning of the paragraph, you will go for eighth option. Let's move on to the next paragraph. I'm again giving you 1 minute. Go through the paragraph and let me know which could be the appropriate option. So, what do you think? What were they talking about in this paragraph? Were they talking about something positive or something negative? Well, they were actually talking about something negative and were saying that if you see all that light from the satellite image or when you're up in the aeroplane, it's all totally wasted. Means the right option is seventh, seen from above. So, why seen from above is basically throughout the paragraph, they're talking about satellite image, which is normally up in the sky, and then from aeroplane. Aeroplane again is when you see from above. Let's move on to the next paragraph now. Again, giving you 1 minute. Go through the paragraph and let me know what was happening. In this paragraph, the writer mentions, or basically, it was talking about an argument going on. Well, in the very first line, this started with the question that all these light, whether it ensure our safety or not. And in the very next line, they have mentioned no, that lights cannot ensure safety. So, and then they talked about the old assumption that lightning can discourage crime, and that is false one. Means in actual, lightning is not discouraging crimes, because if there are too many lights on the road or on the streets, people shut or close the shutters and nobody gets to know whether the crime is happening or not. So if you see from the third line, they have mentioned straight, overly bright security lights can actually force neighbors to close the shutters, which means that if any criminal activity occurs on the street, no one will see it. So actual, or in actual sense, bright light is not discouraging the crimes on the road. And by the end, this paragraph talks about that there is no documented correlation between the level of lightning and the level of crime in an area. That whether more light decreases crime or whether more light increases crime, no such evidence has been found yet. So, if you read the paragraph and you come to the answer as to what has been mentioned in this paragraph, you would probably say they're talking about crimes, and keeping that crime thing in mind, you will go for second option, that is light discourages lawbreaker. But the paragraph is actually saying lightning does not discourages lawbreaker, rather it encourages lawbreaker. So the keywords were matching, but unfortunately, the paragraph's meaning was opposite to what they were talking about in the second point. If I talk about second title, they are talking about something positive, that is lightning discourages the lawbreaker. However, the paragraph talks about something negative overall, that lightning does not discourage lawbreakers, rather it encourages lawbreakers. So the right answer was not second, but it was sixth, a problem lights do not solve. Which problem were they talking about? Well, they were talking about crimes happening when the lights are on. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Again, you have 1 minute. Quickly read that paragraph and let's see whether you figure out or not. Well, this paragraph was pretty short and pretty easy to understand at the same time. So, what do you think was happening in this paragraph? Were they talking about something positive or negative, or probably both? If I talk about the starting, they started with the problem. The problem for drivers when they come across two bright lights on the road. For bright lights, they have used glaring lights. And once they come across such lights, it could lead to accident as well. And from the very second line, they said that in order to avoid such situation, the government came up with a particular law. So if you are able to figure out what this thing happened in the paragraph, list of heading is not at all difficult for you. So keeping this thing in mind, the right answer to this question was fourth, people at risk from bright light. So instead of bright light, they wrote glaring brights. And for people, they wrote drivers. Let's move on to the next paragraph. Read the paragraph for 1 minute and again come back and let's see whether you get what's happening in the paragraph or not. You might have got to know the right answer to this paragraph is third option, that is the environmental dangers. Nowhere in the paragraph they have used the word environment. Nowhere in the paragraph they have used the word dangers. But you got to know this whole paragraph is talking about how bright lights or how lights are influencing migratory birds and how lights are creating pollution. So all these things are related to environment and dangers. Why? Because this paragraph is talking about something negative. And instead of using dangers, they have used the word that is threat in the very first line in the paragraph. So I hope you got to know how to do your list of headings. So let's revise it one by one. So the very first thing you do is you read the title. After reading the title, you read the paragraph very quickly. After reading one paragraph, you will ask yourself certain questions related to the connotation, whether this paragraph is talking about something positive or the paragraph is talking about something negative. After having figured out this thing, you will go back to the titles given as list of heading and you will choose one of them. But how to manage time in these types of questions? Well, whenever you solve list of heading, you only solve list of heading and will not pick any other type of questions along with it. For example, in a paragraph, they have given you multiple types of questions. Firstly, they talk about list of heading, and if then they're talking about blanks, you will not solve blanks along with list of heading. And make sure you do not give more than 1.5 minutes on each question when you're solving your list of heading. So here, if we have done 6 questions, means you will not give more than 8 to 9 minutes to list of heading. And if still you are finding your list of headings difficult, you will stop solving them and then you move on to the next questions after 8 to 9 minutes are over. Let's move on to the very next type of question, that is which section contains the following information in the next session.